I need you to listen. Really listen. Because what I'm about to say didn't come from books or lessons or speeches. It came from years of silence, years of pretending, years of disappearing so slowly that I didn't even realize I was fading. There comes a moment in a life where you stop and look around and realize the world kept moving while you stood still, where your dreams became memories you never lived, where your reflection feels unfamiliar, like a stranger living inside your own skin. I spent so long believing that goodness meant that love meant surrender, that devotion meant shrinking myself so others could grow. And I carried that belief like a quiet burden, a soft weight pressing down on my chest. Every day, every year, every sacrifice I convinced myself was noble. There were moments, tiny ones, almost invisible, where something inside me whispered, softly at first, then louder, asking, "Is this truly your life? Or are you just passing through it for the sake of everyone else?" And every time that voice rose, I pushed it down, told myself it was selfish to want more, that dreaming was a luxury I wasn't allowed to afford, that choosing myself meant abandoning others. So I stayed silent, stayed compliant, stayed small, convincing myself it was strength. But silence is not strength. It is slow disappearance. It is a life dissolving quietly in the background. There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot cure, a tiredness that sits in the soul, not the body, and I carried that kind of tiredness for years. I smiled when I was expected to smile. I stayed quiet when quiet was easier than truth. I shaped myself into the version of a person everyone needed. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what my own laughter sounded like, what my own dreams felt like, what my own presence meant when it wasn't tied to someone else's needs. I lived my life like a supporting character in a story that should have belonged to me. And then, one day, everything became still. The noise of responsibility faded. The rhythm of routine vanished. And for the first time, there was nothing left to hide behind. No roles, no expectations, just me, and a silence that felt heavier than any burden I had ever carried. In that silence, I realized something that shook me to my core. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know what I loved, what I wanted, what I dreamed of, because I had given every piece of myself away and left nothing in my own hands. But in that emptiness, something small began to awaken, not loud, not strong, just a fragile spark, a faint reminder of the person I once was before I taught myself to step aside. It was fear and hope woven together, fear of being seen for the first time, and hope that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to become real again. I stood there, trembling at the edge of my own life, and for the first time, instead of waiting for permission, I took a step toward myself, and that single step, that quiet, trembling, uncertain step, felt more honest than every sacrifice I had ever made. Asterisk, there is a moment you never forget. The moment you realize you've spent more time surviving your life than living it. When you feel your own history pressing against your chest like a weight made of years, of choices, of silences you agreed to without ever speaking. I remember sitting in a room that felt too big for me, surrounded by memories that didn't belong to my soul anymore. And for the first time, I asked myself a question that changed everything. When was the last time you lived for yourself, and not as a shadow for someone else's world? The answer didn't come as a word. It came as an ache, a deep, aching awareness that I had been present in my life, but never truly inside it. That I had stood at the edge of my own dreams and watched them drift away because I always told myself, later, 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 but later never arrives. Later is just a promise we whisper to ourselves to avoid the fear of now. And I realized I had spent years waiting for a moment that was never going to rescue me. There were days when I would walk past a mirror and avoid my own eyes, because I was afraid of what I would see there. A woman who had loved deeply, served endlessly, given everything, and yet had somehow forgotten herself in the process. A woman who didn't know how to exist without carrying everyone else first. A woman who felt guilty for even imagining her own happiness. And that guilt, that quiet, invisible guilt, was the chain that kept me small, but life as a way of uncovering truths we buried beneath responsibility. One small memory, one forgotten dream, one glimpse of who we used to be, can crack the shell we built around our hearts. And slowly, gently, I began to remember what it felt like to want something for myself, to feel curiosity instead of obligation, to feel wonder instead of exhaustion, to breathe without asking if I was allowed to. I started saying no, not with anger, but with courage. I started listening to the quiet voice I had silenced for years, the voice that said, "You deserve space. You deserve breath. You deserve a life that belongs to you." And every time I chose myself, even in small, trembling ways, the world did not fall apart. The sky did not break. The people around me adapted, and I began to feel lighter, freer, more real than I had ever been. For the first time, I was not disappearing. I was returning. Asterisk, there is a different kind of freedom that comes when you stop seeking approval, when you stop shaping yourself to fit expectations that were never yours to carry, when you finally understand that love does not require your disappearance. I spent so many years believing that choosing myself was selfish, that my worth was measured by how much I gave away, that sacrificing my dreams was somehow proof of my goodness. But what I learned, slowly, painfully, is that a life built entirely around others eventually collapses inward, because a person cannot thrive without their own soul. I remember the first time I allowed myself to dream again, not quietly, not secretly, but openly, honestly, without apology. It felt strange at first, uncomfortable, like stepping into a world I didn't believe I was allowed to enter. I felt clumsy, uncertain, out of place, but underneath the fear, there was something else, something vibrant, alive, new. It was the feeling of coming home to myself after a lifetime away. I began to explore the things that once brought me joy, the worlds I had turned away from because life told me they didn't matter. But they did. They always did. Every new experience felt like breathing after years of holding my breath. Every moment I spent with my own thoughts felt like reclaiming lost pieces of my spirit. I was no longer just existing. I was awakening, and with that awakening came truth. I saw how often we are taught to shrink, to soften, to surrender our dreams for the sake of being acceptable, agreeable, pleasing. We are told that choosing ourselves is wrong, that our needs should always come last, that silence is a virtue. But silence is not virtue. Silence is self-abandonment, and I had abandoned myself for far too long. So I made a promise, a quiet, sacred promise, that I would no longer wait for the perfect moment, that I would no longer postpone my life, that I would no longer apologize for wanting more than survival. I began to speak, to act, to live, not loudly, not recklessly, but truthfully. And truth, once awakened, does not fall back asleep. I discovered that joy can exist even after years of emptiness, that it is never too late to bloom, that the heart does not age the way time does. And though I could not reclaim the years I lost, I could honor the years I had left by living them fully, bravely, honestly, without shrinking, without disappearing, without apologizing for existing. There comes a point when you look back and feel both grief and gratitude at the same time. Grief for the years you silenced yourself, and gratitude for the moment you finally chose to return to your own life. I carry both, the ache of time I cannot reclaim, and the deep, indescribable relief of finally living as the person I was always meant to be. If there is one truth I want to leave behind, it is this: do not wait for permission to become yourself. Do not wait for the world to tell you it's your turn. Do not wait for life to slow down, because it won't. There will always be another responsibility, another expectation, another reason to postpone your dreams. And if you keep waiting, one day you will wake up and realize you have lived for everyone but yourself. Choosing yourself is not abandonment. It is resurrection. It is the act of stepping back into your own body, your own voice, your own soul. It is understanding that you can love others deeply while still honoring your own existence. It is accepting that your dreams matter simply because they belong to you. I learned this late, painfully late, but I learned it, and every moment I live now feels like borrowed light, like a gift I finally stopped refusing. I walk through my days with quiet courage, with gentleness toward the person I used to be, and with fierce love for the person I have finally become. And if my words reach you, if they echo somewhere inside your heart, let them be a reminder, not of regret, but of possibility. You still have time. You still have breath. You still have a life waiting for you to step fully into it. Do not shrink. Do not disappear. Do not delay the person you are meant to become. Choose yourself. Now, in this moment, while your heart is still calling your name, and let the rest of your life finally belong to you.